Welcome to Therapeutic Intentions Podcast. My name is Stephanie Dingbaum. I am a mental health therapist, and I am so passionate about all things health and wellness, personal development, and empowering others to be their most authentic and best versions of themselves. Here at Therapeutic Intentions, we are all about having intentional and authentic conversations on whole body health, healing practices, mindset, and ways to uplevel your life so you can truly be the best version of you. If you are a woman, a mom, hope to someday be a mom, a healer, or just in a place where you want to start prioritizing yourself and your health, then this podcast is for you. I am so glad you're here. If you're ready, let's get to it. Hello, beautiful people. Stephanie Dingbaum here with Therapeutic Intentions Podcast. Holy shit, I have Kat Cozadd today. I can't believe I'm saying this. It doesn't feel real to me. You guys, Kat Cozadd is an expander in my life. She's a fellow podcaster of the That's So Rich podcast. And she's a transformation coach and spiritual guide. So let me just give you some background. I can't really say personally, but I feel like I've known Kat personally since 2020. So COVID hit, everything shut down. I was working in the school at that time, and I got heavy into manifestation, specifically like manifestation podcasts. So I was binging. I was cycling through Kat Cozadd's podcast at the time, which at that point in time, it was the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. So I was listening to that. I was then also cycling through Catherine Zankina's podcast and Julia Martin's. And I literally just one after another every day was like another one. And my goal was I want to listen to literally every single episode of all of their podcasts. And so I got huge into manifestation, and I felt like I knew Kat personally just from listening to her podcast so much. But recently, she went through a little bit of a rebranding with her podcast, and now it's the That's So Rich podcast. But yeah, that's how I know Kat. This is a dream come true for me. I was like, I'm going to ask an expander, but there's no way they're going to say yes. But what's the worst she can say is no. So I put it out there, and you guys, she emailed me back, and I actually was talking to her. I hold her at celebrity status. So this is wild to me. But Kat, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners?
Awesome. First of all, thank you so much. And I just thank you for listening to the podcast. The reason I do what I do is because of people like you, and to hear how big of an impact it's made on your life. And the fact that I get to sit here on your show now is also a dream come true for me. Thanks. First of all, thank you. But yeah, so like you said, my name's Kat Cozadd. So essentially, when it comes to manifestation as a whole, we kind of have to take it back to the very beginning in order for us to understand our manifestation stories and our manifestation journeys. So my journey, of course, like everybody else's, starts in childhood. I grew up in a household where my dad was an alcoholic and my mom wasn't a citizen of the United States. So in order to stay in the States and raise me and my brother, she had to tolerate a lot of toxic things. And that's not to put all of the blame on my dad whatsoever. It's not to put the blame on either of my parents, but it was oftentimes an unsafe environment growing up. There was a lot of unpredictability, which led me to feeling unsafe. And due to that lack of safety that I felt, I ended up putting on a ton of weight in my younger years. I was considered obese as a kid, and I was severely bullied for that. And so for anybody who's listening that's okay, weird correlation, that doesn't make sense. Essentially, when we feel unsafe in childhood, we'll oftentimes put on a lot of weight as a barrier to the world to try and protect ourselves. And so I was overweight as a kid. I was severely bullied for it. I was actually put at physical harm for it at times. And that led to this deep wounding and belief that there was something inherently wrong with me. Yeah. And I carried that belief and this lack of safety inside of myself for such a long time, but nobody could really tell from the outside. I put on a fake smile. I put on this brave face and was just hell yeah, I'm Kat Cozadd. I can take on the world, so on and so forth. Whereas internally I was really struggling. And in high school, I hit my first bout of serious depression and hopelessness where I was experiencing suicidal thoughts for the first time. And that was my first introduction to any sort of mental health, any sort of like mindfulness. I was in therapy 2 times a week, and it was incredible at the time. But ultimately, it just felt like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound, because we never actually addressed the underlying issues. It was more so just managing the symptoms. And so as the years went on, I got into my late teens to early 20s. I turned to drugs and alcohol instead, because that felt like a much more effective coping mechanism than constantly having to manage the symptoms of depression and hopelessness. And that was fun for a short period of time. It worked for a short period of time, but ultimately just put more fuel on the fire. And this fire inside of myself started burning bigger and bigger, and ultimately led me to a place where in the spring of 2019, I just wanted a completely fresh start. I had been battling with depression and hopelessness for years at that point, and was like, okay, if I move to a different city and start all over again, then everything will be fine. So I pack up my apartment, I move to a new state, and start a new job. And in the process of that, was like, okay, this is my opportunity, and didn't realize that all of those things that I was trying to run away from were actually going to follow me and be amplified even more, because I didn't have the like safety mechanisms or the coping that I had back in Colorado, minus the drinking and drugs. And so I found myself in the spring of 2019 at rock bottom position, where I was $70,000 in debt, working 60 plus hours a week in a dead end job that I completely hated. I was feeling completely hopeless on a daily basis, and I didn't know how life was going to continue to move forward. And in that moment, I didn't really believe in manifestation. I didn't really know what I believed in general. My dad completely resisted religion growing up, because he was raised by a pastor and really didn't like being raised in the church. My mom was Catholic, but she had a ton of Catholic guilt. So like religion and spirituality and all of these things always felt really confusing to me, but it always felt like it was something that I was connected to regardless. And so I just started to pray. I had no clue what I was praying to. I had no clue if anything was going to hear me, but I just was like, if life is going to continue to move forward, I need things to be radically different. And I don't know what that looks like, but like, I need help. Yeah. And on the summer solstice, crazy enough, of 2019, I woke up on the floor of my apartment, not remembering how I got there, not remembering really what happened the night before, other than the fact that I partied my ass off and probably shouldn't have been waking up at all. And I was so scared. I remember laying there so scared. And ultimately, as I was laying there, I felt this wave of energy wash through my body. And I got up immediately off the floor and ran over to my bathroom mirror. And I said out loud to myself, Kat, you have the power to change your life. So why haven't you yet? And it was on that day and in that moment that I was like, okay, this is the turning point. This is where I draw the line in the sand, and life can never look the same again. And I decided to put on some hiking gear, get myself outside, and start to hike up the mountains in the area nearby. And as I was going on this hike, I decided to tune into a podcast that I found on Instagram. It was on my Instagram feed from somebody that I didn't follow, but it like popped up as an ad. And it was about manifestation. And I had heard about manifestation before, and I wrote it off as bullshit. And I was like, nope, this doesn't work. And so something that day said, listen to this podcast. And so I did. And I listened to the podcast, and every single word that it said resonated with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is something that I need to put all of my focus and attention into. And so I made the promise to myself from that point moving forward, I was going to implement intentional manifestation into my life. I had no clue what I was going to do with it, but I knew that it was important. So that's what I did. I went all in. I hired a manifestation coach. I started to share my story online. I started to just like talk vulnerably about my story, and so many people started to reach out to me and were super curious and saw the shifts and changes that were happening inside of me. And through all of those changes, being able to then support people with just what I knew at the time, they started to change their lives really quickly as well. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is the thing, and this can really support other people. And so in January of 2020, I launched my own manifestation coaching business. And I was able to scale it to my first 6 figures within 10 months of starting the business, which at the time, going from being a college dropout and working a dead-end job to then making 6 figures, I was like, holy shit, this is the answer to all of my problems.
Yeah.
But when I hit the 10K line or the $100,000 line, I felt exponentially worse because I was expecting it to fix all of my problems.
Yeah.
And that's where the real healing started. And from that point moving forward, I dove super deep into learning all about somatic healing, actually clearing things out from the cellular level of the body, being able to step into the full embodiment of like the higher version of myself, which led me to quitting drinking, removing alcohol from my life. And that's been honestly probably the biggest game changer of anything that I've ever actually done. And I can say now that I live a life that I never imagined was possible for me. I live in New York City, which is the city of my dreams and has been since I was a kid. I've had the honor of supporting over 500 women over the past few years in my coaching programs. And just like truly couldn't be more grateful for where I'm at thanks to manifestation.
Yeah. So, okay, so many things I want to say, but the one thing that really stands out in my mind is you had hit that 6-figure goal that you probably never thought was possible, but because of manifestation, you made it there. But you hadn't yet worked through your limiting beliefs around money, I'm assuming. So that had to be kind of a wake-up call for you.
Yeah, so it was interesting because I thought that I had done the healing work surrounding like my beliefs about money, because my money mindset got so much better. It was money is abundant, money flows easily into my life, like all of these things that we're taught about in the space of manifestation surrounding money, like truly all of those resonated as true to me. But what I didn't realize was that I was putting this level of attachment onto money, or this level of meaning onto money, that like money was going to be the thing that then solved the relationship that I had to myself, the ways that I was still using alcohol to numb out, or using food to numb out, or any of these like past experiences that I deemed would go away if I was making enough money. And a big part of that is because growing up in like this teeny town that I grew up in Colorado, anybody who was making 6 figures was killing it. Like they were fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
Versus like actually being in that experience, it was like, oh, okay, I have the money now, but there's nothing that's actually changed in terms of like this, and not nothing, but like the core wounds of like being inherently flawed and people not liking me and all of these other things were then like even more obvious, because I no longer had money as the scapegoat of like why that was true. And it was really just the moment that I realized that nothing external from me was ever going to give me the level of safety or security that I was looking for.
Like it's all within.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had to come to that conclusion though. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. And I think that that's so true for so many people on this journey, is that like, you can hear it all day long on a podcast, but until you hit whatever goal it is that you think is going to bring you something and you realize it's not, like that's when the real work starts. And that's beautiful.
I completely agree. So I find it ironic. Your experience kind of mirrors parts of mine in that, isn't it funny how like, okay, so you started your podcast and then people from the outside looking in start seeing and noticing this transition that you're going through. And it's funny because when I started my podcast, it was the exact same way. Like people were reaching out to me like, oh my gosh, you just seem like you've grown so much lately. Like, I'm so proud of you. And I also equated it to, I was doing a lot of Reiki when I started the podcast, and I still am, but, cool. And I had found out that this throat chakra was like, went all the way back to like the seed point of the wound around my throat chakra. And cause there's been a lot of trauma with my neck in my current lifetime. And it was like, there was a spiritual meaning behind doing this. And so when people from the outside looking in are like noticing that transformation, it's like, yeah, because this is meant for my authentic self. Like this is soul aligned. So it's so funny how people notice that. To me, it was ironic. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it like it didn't hit me until recently that like, well, yeah, of course you notice this change because this is my soul's mission. Like I'm meant to be speaking out now.
Mm-hmm.
And for so long when you suppress your voice, I don't know like how to explain that, but like, yeah, you're going to see a different side of me. Like this is the real authentic me now speaking out.
Absolutely. Have you had the experience with it where like people find it triggering?
Listening to the podcast?
Or just like seeing you glow?
I don't know if it's a story I tell myself in my head because nobody has like come out and said anything. Most of my friends have been extremely, amazingly supportive. And my family, I don't really know how much of my family listens to it, but there have been times, like I'm very intuitive. And so there's definitely some people that the story I tell myself in my head is like, maybe it's hard for you to see me stepping up and speaking my truth and not holding back. But I haven't actually got any like verbal or face-to-face validation that that's true. But like I said, my intuition I don't feel like it steers me wrong. So like intuitively, I feel, yes, there are some people that are definitely triggered by this, but they're probably not standing in their truth yet. This is what I tell myself.
100%. It is. And I think that it's really cool for anybody who's listening to this podcast. Like they're stepping into the space that if they're not already speaking their truth and standing in their like authenticity, they're moving towards that place. But I've definitely had the experience of it triggering a lot of people, which is fine. And I'm grateful to be able to be that trigger because it brings more light to those people whenever they're ready to receive it. But yeah, I was just super curious about your experience with that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I didn't start the podcast I'm in a really, really small town here in Eastern Iowa, and I didn't start the podcast for local people. Like I started it telling myself the story that it was going to reach outside of Iowa's borders. Like I think there's a lot of insight and knowledge on the topics that I'm bringing to the podcast that aren't as well known here in Eastern Iowa. But in general, like locally, like they're not my ideal listeners. And if they're listening, I think that's great. But like, I always tell myself, like, you're not doing this for people living here in Earlville. You're not doing this for Delaware County. Like, you're doing it for people beyond these borders. And if people locally like don't like what you're saying, well, this isn't for them. You're not doing this for them. And the whole point of the podcast is not to tiptoe around your feelings. It's not to feed your ego and make you feel good. We are here to talk about things that people don't like talking about around the dinner table, or topics that make some people feel uncomfortable. They might be triggering for others. That's what we're here for. We're not like the throat chakra is wide open. We're not holding back. We're swearing. We're honest. That's why we're here. So I don't apologize for any of it.
Absolutely. I love that. And within that, that's just like it's a magnetizing energy.
It is. Yeah. Yes. So like you, I just recently started a coaching program with another expander, Julia Martin, OMFG. This is like 2024 has been my fucking year because she was on my vision board. So I just can't believe I manifested it. But now I'm in the works of getting certified as a life coach. And I never in a million years, never thought I would call myself a mindset and manifestation coach. I would call you that. I would call Julia that. I would call Catherine Zankina that. But like Stephanie Dingbaum? No. Like that is weird. And now here I am, like I'm not even through the program and I'm embodying her. Like I go out and meet people and I'm like, hi, I'm a mental health therapist and a mindset and manifestation coach. Like it's not official yet, but I'm doing it. I'm embodying her. Like this is what you do. Yeah, preach, right?
If you are short or petite in any way, then listen up. This ad is for you. Did you know that nearly half of all women in the US are 5'4" or under, therefore considered petite? Being petite should not mean compromising on your style. For years, I shopped in the children's section at certain stores just to be able to find clothes that fit me somewhat decently without needing to be hemmed or altered. Even when I did shop in the adult section, it was always difficult to find clothes that came in extra small, or even worse, extra, extra small. The only way to find petite clothes was for me to order online. But that meant not being able to try them on or know if they fit correctly or not. When I finally did find some loyal companies that actually sold my sizes, I still almost always needed alterations to be done. Either the arms were too long, the pants were too long, or the waist was still wider than I'd like. I felt like I was not asking for too much to be able to have clothes that fit me to a T without needing to spend extra money getting clothes altered. Due to the poor fit in clothes, I had grown to hate shopping. Seriously, you guys, I never looked forward to it, especially knowing I wasn't going to find something that fit me just right. This frustration led me to researching style boxes in hopes that maybe, just maybe, I could find a style box to accommodate my petite size. Initially, I hit dead end after dead end. Either they didn't offer petite options or they didn't go down to extra, extra small in sizes, which is what I needed. All my prayers were answered one day when I stumbled upon a clothes subscription box called Short Story. Short Story's mission is to help petite women dress with total confidence. They acknowledge that fashion has never been petite friendly, and they are completely rewriting the rules. Amazing, right? They have clothes for petites of all sizes, all heights, and all shapes. Even better, they get their inspiration directly from their buyers, people like you and me who subscribe to them. They literally create and design their clothing lines using our specific feedback. How freaking amazing is that, you guys? There's so much I love about Short Story, but I'll keep it short and sweet so you can get back to the show. First things first, you can order boxes monthly, bi-monthly, every 3 months. You can personalize it to your own specific shopping needs, which is awesome. No more ordering online, going into stores. I get my box monthly and it always comes with 7 items. I would say on average, I keep anywhere from 4 to 6 of the items depending on the month. And another added benefit, when I started, I took their styling quiz and gave them my specific measurements for my entire body. We're talking bust, waist, height, arm length, etc., which means no more alterations. Everything fits my arms, my legs, all of it. It's like, I don't know, I feel like I have my own personal stylist. It makes me feel like a freaking rock star. And after each box, I'm able to give my stylist feedback on the item she sent and requests that I have for future boxes. So I'm always getting my fashion needs met depending on what time of year we're in and what I'm looking for and what events I might have coming up. I am always satisfied too, because it's pretty rare for my request to not be granted, not gonna lie. Finally, when you fill out your styling quiz in the beginning, you get to tell them your price point, what you can and can't afford, what style you prefer, what you like, what you don't like when it comes to clothing, and you can give them access to your Pinterest style board, which, truth be told, best thing I ever did for myself. I literally have manifested my Pinterest style board in real life, you guys, because they look at it each month, and if I pin new items to it, they'll try and send me items that I've pinned or close to it. Talk about an added bonus. It's just amazing. So seriously, I feel like I've bragged enough. I'm sure you get the point by now. Short Story is for petites of all ages, all sizes. If you are 5'4" and under, this is the subscription box for you. No more shopping in stores. Let your clothes come directly to you. Hopefully, this will then save you time. I know we all need more of that, and money in the long run. I wouldn't be recommending a company that I myself don't strongly support and believe in personally. I have been a loyal subscriber of Short Story for over 6 years now, and I am so proud of it. Be honest. If you are short or petite like me, wouldn't you love to show up at professional events or family gatherings feeling confident in what you're wearing, knowing that it came tailored to your specific fashion needs? If you're intrigued at all, go into my show notes for today's episode and use the referral link that I put in there. This link will waive your $25 styling fee for your first box. If you are anything like me and you're ready to up-level your style, show up as that next level version of yourself, and feel like $1,000,000, then subscribe to Short Story today. I promise you will not regret it. All links will be in my show notes for today's episode.
So I don't know. It just feels wild. Like I feel like I'm in this era where I am stepping into that future version of me. And I don't know if you remember back in, it probably would have been like 2019, 2020 for you, but like, was that not the most amazing feeling when you finally were like, she's here, she's within me, I'm embodying her?
100%. It's such a crazy feeling. And one of the coolest things I think about that embodiment feeling, and again, for anybody who's listening, that's like, okay, embodiment, cool.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? I'm a firm believer that when it comes to, so like when we talk about manifestation, the only thing you actually need to manifest the life that you desire is stepping into and becoming the version of yourself who already has it. So getting super clear on like, who is that version of yourself that already has the life that you desire? How does she walk? How does she talk? How does she show up for life, for her finances, for her friends, for her family, for her clients, or work in whatever capacity? And like, showing up with that kind of energy for it. And it's really a lot of the times one of the biggest like things that I see for women who are wanting to step into that embodiment, they have a resistance or a block to it, is that we hear that on podcasts, we read it in books, we see it on Instagram, TikTok, all of the different places. But it's almost like it stays up here in the head and it doesn't come down to the body. And it's really that act of, like we're saying, embodiment, getting it out of the head and into the body, in your actions, in your behaviors, in your emotions, in the way that you're showing up for life, that big shift starts to happen. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, the coolest thing about that is that the embodiment process never stops. Like, when I first started this journey, I was working as a barista for $8.25 an hour. But I wanted to be a successful online coach making at least $10,000 a month. So did I show up for life as the barista making $8.25 an hour? No, I showed up to my barista job as the coach that was making $10,000 a month. And by doing that, I was choosing to show up in the energy of, it's a choice to be here. I get to be here. Mm-hmm. And my only job is being the brightest light in the room, providing value to other people. And through that process, one, it made that job that I hated so much more enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And two, it brought me into this place of receiving more tips. Three, mm-hmm. It also really started to solidify the identity and the self-concept of, oh, this is who I am and this is how I get to move forward in the world. Whereas now, manifesting all of the things that I ever thought that I could want and manifest, I'm now stepping into the space of, and this is something that I'm sure I'll share later on in the podcast at some point, is like, I want to take I'm taking my work offline into in person here in New York City. Awesome. And to be a community and a thought leader in New York City is the scariest, most incredible thing that I didn't know my soul was signing up for when it said it wanted to move to New York City when I was 14 years old. But I knew that I was called here for some sort of reason, and to actually step into the identity of somebody who is worthy to share her thoughts and her gifts and her words with the high achieving individuals that live in New York City has been such an embodiment process of no longer letting fear run my life and being in this way of like, oh, well, like, maybe people from my hometown or this or that, like, will understand and want to hear what I have to say, but like not the people here because they're already so versed and so successful and so whatever it may be. And really just like releasing those fears and doubts and stepping so fully into like, no, I'm here for a purpose and for a reason. And I wouldn't have this desire to do this thing if it wasn't for the fact that I was meant to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. And I think it was a recent podcast of yours maybe that I listened to, but like so often when we're talking about embodying that future version of you, you hear the phrase like act as if, and I think it was your podcast, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think it was your podcast that talked about like, no, we're not, like, scratch that phrase. We're not acting. This isn't showing up like you're acting, portraying a character, because that to me correlates to you're not being authentic.
Yep.
But we're actually, embodiment is so different from just acting as if. Mm-hmm. Like, then she's within you. ultimately is what it comes down to. Yeah.
100%. The act as if, or the fake it till you make it sayings, I'm like, if that helps somebody take the first step into the door of embodiment, fabulous.
Yeah.
But you're not faking it and you're not acting, because if you're putting on an act, ultimately what you want and what you're manifesting will not be sustainable.
Right.
Because if you're acting to get what you want and then you stop that act as soon as you manifest it, you're not going to sustain it. Whereas if it's this becoming process, and the embodiment process is all about becoming, it's becoming the most authentic, powerful, confident, sure, clear, intuitive version of yourself. And by being that, you can manifest anything that you want. And not only that, you can sustain it. And I think that that's the piece in manifestation so often that is forgot about, is that like, yeah, it's great to manifest the thing, but if you can't sustain it, then like, what's the point of manifesting it in the first place?
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think what often holds people back with the whole embodiment piece is what you mentioned too, is fear. I mean, you know, initially I kind of went like, I immediately, when I was like doing my affirmations, I went to like, okay, what is that future? Like in an ideal world, what does that future version of me have? Whereas sometimes like I find with clients, they want to like baby step it. Like that just like first millionaire in my family, that just, I don't know, feels way too out of reach. That's not realistic to me. My brain will not buy into that. Okay, well, what's a baby step? Maybe just making six figures, you know? But I went all in. I was very much like, no, I want to be the first female millionaire in my family. Like that sounds realistic to me. I think she could be it within me, you know? But that fear definitely does hold people back, which is why I think with so many clients, I have to like bring it back down to like, okay, what feels more attainable? Like what's an affirmation that your mind might actually buy into, you know? And the reason I feel I have to make it more attainable is because everybody's holding on to that fear. I mean, I think that's what holds most of us back is like, well, is that really possible? Or what if I do manifest that? And I mean, people just aren't willing sometimes to fully believe that best case scenario is possible for them. I mean, it doesn't mean you won't have hard days. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you're going to have the tools and the mindset to overcome those low times.
Absolutely.
But I feel that fear is constantly holding people back.
Absolutely. And unfortunately with that, we live in a society that preaches fear. Yeah. So it's like people don't even understand that it is fear because it's just such a normalized narrative. You turn on the news, you will not hear one story of love and light and hope and optimism. You will hear stories of fear and scarcity and lack. Same with majority of like, honestly, most news sources, whether it be on TV, social media, so on and so forth, we're taught to play it safe. We're taught to, and it's safe is disguised as smart. It's like, do the smart thing, get the smart job, go to school, do the things. And that's not to shit on people who go to school or fall into one of these smart careers, but it's really framed in this way of minimizing any sort of fear by just following what is safe and smart, as opposed to giving yourself permission to question it. Because ultimately, when it comes to fear and my experience of fear, because I would be a bold-faced liar if I showed up on this podcast and said like, I'm fearless and I don't experience fear, because that's a huge misconception in the world of personal development and manifestation, is that you're working towards this state of being fearless. Right. No, you're not. You're just learning to work with the fear and catching yourself in the moments that you're allowing fear to lead your life, which hands down over the past 2 years, fear has led me astray many a times. But the thing that we have to remember is that fear is the ego's last line resort, because you're so close to being to that next level or taking that step or moving into the unknown in some sort of capacity that this little internal piece of yourself, the ego, that's number one job is to try and keep you safe, is like, fuck, what can we do to try and get her to stay? To try to keep her small, to keep her where she is and not allow her to move forward.
Right. Like if your norm for the past 30 years of your life has been to buy into that fear, and now all of a sudden you're hearing from people like you that no, like retrain your brain to think like best case scenario, which there's not, I mean, we're the minority because there is more people that do like to buy into the fear. So all of a sudden you're telling your brain like, no, only think best case scenario only. Your subconscious is like, well, that's not true. You don't believe in that. And so to make that switch is a very conscious decision. And then to change those limiting beliefs around like, it's safe to think positive. It's okay to assume best case scenario. Like that takes time. That you're not going to change those beliefs overnight. And again, if those beliefs have been hardwired for 30 plus years, then it's going to take some time to now create new, not limiting, new empowering beliefs, so absolutely. So embodiment, huge tool if you're wanting to manifest or truly become that next level version of you. But then another big tool that I want to talk about is the intention setting with manifestation. So do you want to shed some light on that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I don't think most people are aware of is the fact that you are manifesting every single moment, regardless of if you are aware of it. And so your entire life, as you look around right now, as you're listening to this podcast, everything that you see is a manifestation of your own internal experience of life. And so when it comes to being intentional, like you said, setting intentions for the manifestation process, when I talk about manifestation, I like to talk about it as intentional manifestation, which means that you're taking this conscious creator role in your life to align your internal world, meaning your thoughts, your behaviors, your beliefs, your emotions, with what you desire to see externally, because the internal always precedes the external. Again, our world likes to teach us when I see it, then I can believe it. But it actually works the opposite way around, where your internal world is just being projected into what you see externally. So if you can start to step into this intentional role of, okay, I want to understand how good life could be. And I want to see how good it could get. And I want to believe so deeply in myself. What can I shift internally to align myself with that intention? And as a byproduct of that, then seeing how your world shifts in whatever capacity. And also knowing that the more intentional you get, the more intentional the external will become in terms of what you're available for and what you're not, the kinds of relationships you attract versus perhaps the kind of people that you used to attract, the kind of money, opportunities, resources, all of the different things. It's completely changed my life, like I talked about, but it's really just stepping into this intentional creator role.
I love that. Yeah. I just recently read the book, Why Woo Woo Works, and like, it breaks down all these different spiritual practices and modalities, and almost all of them just comes down to intention setting. I mean, it scientifically explains how setting intentions actually does lead to manifesting things. And it explains how crystals work. It all comes down to the intentions around using them. I mean, literally every like woo-woo tool comes down to the intentions you're setting around it. And that's why it works. It's just
absolutely, because if everything in life is a belief, which it is, it's like if you look at the crystal and you're like, that shit doesn't work, then it's not going to work.
Right, exactly.
But if you read the different healing properties that it has and energetic properties that it has, and you look at it with this intention of like, wow, this has the power to create some sort of transformation in my life, then it does. Same with like this podcast. People could listen to this and be like, those girls are spouting a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
And if that is your truth, then this podcast episode will be a bunch of bullshit.
Yes.
But if you listen to it through the lens of like, wow, there's transformative information in what they're saying, then you'll experience transformation. And that's the coolest freaking thing, is that it all comes back down to a belief, and it all comes back to that everything we believe is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because we want to confirm that what we're experiencing and what we believe is true on a subconscious level. So every single day, every single moment, we're looking to confirm that our realities are true. So it's all about this intention, like you're talking about.
Yes, I love that. I love like how the law of attraction is really just that. Like our brain, like if you tell your brain that, yeah, I'm a mindset manifestation coach, then my brain is going to look for evidence in my real life to prove that as true. And then to me, it like works so fast. If you're vibing at a high frequency anyways, like it works so fast. You start to see evidence so quickly. It's mind blowing to me. Like I just last week started introducing myself as this coach that I'm not officially yet, but I started introducing myself as her. And I was at one of our, I'm a part of this group, female entrepreneur group here in Eastern Iowa. We had our monthly meeting last week, and I had explained that I'm going through this coaching program and that I'm going to be a mindset manifestation coach. Anyways, as the group went on, another gal was talking, she's still in like year one of her business, and was just kind of explaining some of the struggles and was sharing some of her beliefs. And I had just like called her out on a few limiting beliefs that I was hearing in front of the whole group. And then jokingly, she was like, I need to work with you. And I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah. And then afterwards, she approached me afterwards, and another gal did too. And she was like, no, seriously, like, I want to work with you. I'll pay what your prices are. And I literally was like, holy shit. Like, I'm not even a coach yet. What just happened? It was just so mind blowing to me. Like just that fast. Like I introduced myself, and that's what happens though. Like literally, when I really do think your frequency plays a role in that too. Like, I just think when you're vibing high, it's not to say that you can't be in a bad mood, but when you're at that high frequency, I think manifestations start flowing even faster because your mind, your thoughts is just, to me, it's just mind blowing, but I just love it. Like, it gets me so excited.
Absolutely. And the other thing that you're like hitting on in there, Stephanie, is that one of the things that most people leave out in manifestation, which is like you took inspired action. You allowed yourself to speak. You didn't stop yourself from sharing the thoughts or sharing the perspective that you had and putting yourself into that environment in the first place, because we can sit behind closed doors all day long and write in our pretty little journals, I'm abundant, I'm abundant, I'm abundant. I've found the love of my life. My soulmate loves me back, blah, 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 all the things. But if you don't actually walk out that door and into the world and take the inspired action that one, your intuition is leading you towards, and two, just like what you're feeling called to share or do, then we can waste this manifestation potential. And I don't like to use the word waste lightly, because it's like, there's still so much potential if you're making your voice known online and you're behind closed doors or whatever it is. But I think we forget, especially since the pandemic, that the magic of this world lies outside of these little devices and actually is in the people and the places and the experiences that like the divine is trying to lead us to. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. That was so well said. Yes. I couldn't agree more. So your business really started, was it 2019 or 2020?
So I built it out in the last 2 months of 2019, and I officially launched January 1st of 2020.
Wow. 2020 feels like it was just last year. So that's wild to me. Like you're still just within the first 5 years of your coaching business. And I feel like you took off. I mean, between the podcast and your course that you offer, I mean, I can't believe that was just in 2020. Like, that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's like you're talking about with how quickly manifestation works.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to hit on, because so many people are like, oh, well, it's going to take time and this and that. It's like, if everything is a belief and you want to hold on to that belief, sure. But it can happen so quickly. It's not an overnight success, because by no means did it happen overnight. But I was shook that by launching in January 2020, I was hitting and consistently maintaining 10K months from April moving forward.
That's awesome.
And it's just continued to grow. There's been challenges for sure. But at the beginning of starting my coaching business, I said to myself, this is going to be the easiest thing that I ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. And yeah, because you want to enjoy the process. I mean, that's what I told myself even when I was starting my private practice. I mean, I had no business experience, never took a business course in college. My parents were not business owners. So, I mean, I was just really learning from scratch. But I told myself in my affirmations, in my beliefs, like I told myself daily, this was going to be a fun journey. Mm-hmm. And I can say it has been. I mean, like you, yes, there's been bumps in the road. There have been some decisions that maybe I should have, thought more logically through, but I don't care because I enjoyed it all and it all played a part. Like I got here because of some of those decisions and you can't regret that. I do have a personal question for you. I just thought of this. I have found just since up-leveling, since starting the business and starting the podcast, just as I'm embodying this future version of me more and more, like, did you experience a shift in like your personal supports?
Absolutely. Yeah. From where I was at and who was a part of my life when I first started this journey, I would say there's only like 2 or 3 of those people that are still there. And, I have a completely different community in terms of support now. Kind of like we were talking about at the beginning, like when you shine bright, you trigger people who aren't ready to also shine.
Yeah.
It's not that there's been like, there's been like 2 ugly fallouts.
Sure. I mean, life happens.
Yeah. There's been 2 like not so pretty fallouts with people, and I wish them all the best and still send them so much love. But yeah, just a really big shift in terms of like who wants to continue to grow with me and who doesn't. And I found that, honestly, my support from my parents has only gotten stronger and stronger. My communication with my parents has only gotten stronger and stronger.
Yes.
And that's been beautiful because at the beginning of this journey, I was terrified to share with them that like, hey, like I'm kind of sharing the shit that happened growing up online and all of these different things. And they're like, speak your truth, girl. You got to do what you got to do. And like, thank you for bringing it to us and like sharing these things with us because we just weren't aware. So that's been really cool. I still have one of my best friends from growing up who is just so supportive, and it's really cool to continue to grow with her. But yeah, I mean, I found my community of people here in New York City that are wanting to grow in really big ways and love me regardless. I do want to hit on that though, because I had a belief at one point when I really started like the coaching business that in order to be loved by people, I had to continue to grow and had to continue to expand and like make more money and like reach new heights and all of the different things. And at one point that felt really, really heavy because I was like, oh my gosh, like when do I just get to like sit and experience and be me and not have to like constantly be like working or stretching towards something bigger? And in 2023, I really went through this phase of like, okay, if I just didn't, like who would still show up and who would still love me? And it was terrifying and very vulnerable to just be like, I didn't work for like 4 or 5 months in 2023 just because I was like, nope, kind of want to like stop and see what happens. And the people who are the biggest support in my life showed up 10 times more.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I do feel I can relate to, I feel like my relationship with my parents has strengthened. I just think that's an ongoing journey. I definitely see my relationship with my dad has strengthened, but I've done some aligned action too to make that happen. I definitely, like my best friend from college, I think our relationship has continued. Like she's my number one cheerleader. And I think just in general, because as you're embodying, you're putting yourself in rooms, in events, in situations with people who are at that level where you want to be. Like I try to put myself in rooms with expanders. I try to put myself like around other people who are building their business, because then they truly get like wearing all the hats, and that it's not like your 9 to 5 job. Like, not that it's better, but like, it's just not the same. You can't completely relate to me. Yeah. So as you're putting yourself in more rooms like that, it does seem like your support system kind of shifts a little, like just organically, which is not a bad thing. I'm grateful for that. But then, yes, I agree. There have been some, not a lot like you, like 2 that just haven't come to this next chapter with me, and there was no bad blood. It just kind of like, you were served a purpose in a chapter of my life where I needed you, and we're just not serving that purpose for each other anymore, and it's okay. And totally. But I definitely have noticed that, and I assumed you definitely would have experienced something similar. So
absolutely. Yeah. One of my best friends here in the city, he uses this analogy for relationships as like a pool table with all the pool balls. It's like you start off and you're all really close to each other, but it's like when you then go off on your own, it all cracks apart, and everybody's still on the table. There's just sometimes you're going to be directly next to that other ball. Sometimes you're going to be completely far away from it. And sometimes some of the balls are going to be knocked into the holes and they're going to be taken off the table. And it doesn't mean that they didn't serve an incredible purpose. And it doesn't mean that they might not come back for another game at some point. But it's okay that we're constantly in this transition with like our support systems and people in our lives to be able to have some distance between us at some point. And I can imagine in Iowa, just like Colorado growing up, that was something that didn't feel okay. It was like you had your ride or die friends from like high school, preschool, like young age, and you're supposed to ride or die with them until you're like old. And that was such a heavy weight that I carried, because like you said, it's not that I don't think what specifically like one friend that I'm not really a part of her life anymore. It's not that I don't think what she's doing isn't amazing. I think it's incredible. I love that she's living her life. I love that she's living her truth, but we just don't have anything in common anymore.
Exactly.
And instead of trying to force a connection, it's just really like recognizing like, I send you all the love, I send you all the life, like fucking crush it. Yeah. And like, if you ever want to reconnect in the future and there are things for us to connect on, then beautiful.
I completely agree. Yeah. I have a specific friend that, I want to look forward to talking. I want to feel like I want it to not feel like we're just talking about surface level stuff. Like I talk about deep stuff. And if I don't feel like we're doing that, like, then I'm not really feeling fed. And that's not a selfish thing. That's just, I notice I need that in my relationships. And that's usually, if I'm not getting that, it's like, that's unfortunately, I tend to do it passively. Like I just put some distance. Like I just might not answer every single phone call, or I might not call as often anymore. And I'm not saying that's the right way to handle it as a therapist. I'm well aware that's not the way to handle it, but life happens. You grow and you learn, and I'm trying to be better in that area. But Absolutely. So shifting gears a little bit, I'm really curious, like, so why don't you first, I do want to know more about these in-person services that you're transitioning into, but just in general, can you share with listeners if, like, for instance, if a listener wanted to work with you, if a listener wanted to get coaching from you, like, what would that look like? How can they access you? All the deets.
Absolutely. So I'm going all in on a membership community that is online and in person in New York City. So it is, by the time this podcast episode is released, it's called the Belief Society. And it is a community for people to come together and explore creating the life of their dreams without substances. So it's a completely alcohol-free, substance-free community, online and in person, that offers full manifestation courses, mindset courses, energy courses, all of these different things that are like what I've been talking about through this, but then also events online to do breath work, EFT tapping, somatic healing, receive coaching, meditation, intention setting, and actual like live support calls. And yeah, so that's the online course portion of it, or like the online piece of it. As an online member, you also get access to all of the events that happen in New York City. So if you ever find yourself in New York City and you want to be a part of it, you get access to all of the events here. But same thing in person. There's going to be manifestation in mocktails. There's going to be manifestation in matcha. There's going to be walks called Miracle Miles. There's women's circles. There's a bunch of different things that are going to be happening on a monthly basis, as well as bringing in like guest experts on different topics to be able to help take your life and your journey to the next level. But the three most important things, or the three most pivotal things that have been a part of my life, has been finding intentional manifestation, removing alcohol from my life, and moving to New York City. And I said, this is the perfect way to combine all three of those things. So like I said, whether you're in New York City or not, you're able to be a part of this. And yeah, it's called the Belief Society.
Oh my gosh, I freaking love this. That sounds amazing. Wow. Okay. So no longer solely doing online coaching. Like you're now offering in-person services. That's amazing. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. When does it like officially kick off?
So the online portion is already available.
Cool.
The in-person is kicking off on November 11th. So 11/11.
Wow. Oh, perfect. That's
Yeah.
so amazing. I love that for you. And the name just sounds so aligned. Belief
Thank you.
Society. I love
Yeah,
that.
and it's so funny because our tagline is something that you've said on this podcast, but the tagline is "It's all within you."
Love, yes.
Belief Society, it's all within you. It's all within you. And that's like really what this is all about, is helping you connect to this part of yourself where you don't feel as though you have to outsource to anything else. And really just, like I said, tying in that piece of it being an alcohol-free community. That doesn't mean that you don't have, like, you have to be completely alcohol-free.
Yeah.
It's just exploring in the space of the community that you don't need that substance in your life to numb or have fun or whatever it is that you maybe think. You can choose to opt into that. Absolutely. And it's not that you can't be a part of it if you do. It's just really bringing that level of awareness that you don't have to have anything outside of you to create the life of your dreams.
I love that. There's been so many collabs on here lately that we've talked about being alcohol free. And when I went to a Powerhouse Women Conference in August, they had mocktails, they had Kin Euphorics, they had really pushed the message that, yeah, you can have fun without alcohol. And I felt at home. It was so nice. And I've always drank, so I went alcohol free because of my fertility journey a couple years ago. So I got really big into Hi-O. I don't know if you've heard of Hi-O or not, but I just love, it's a non-alcohol option and it's got like adaptogens in it and, like ashwagandha and just all natural ingredients. And so that's kind of been my go-to. I always try to have that stocked in our fridge in the garage. But to be in that energy around one, just like-minded individuals, but then also people who feel the same that, yeah, I don't need alcohol to have fun. 'Cause it just felt like we all were authentically showing up. And I just feel like that, like when we hang out with friends here in the Midwest, like we all drink in each other's garages. That's what you do. It's just a different vibe though, being in a room around people who truly feel that they can be authentic and have fun, whether there's alcohol in their hand or not. It's just a different vibe, you know?
100%. 100%. Yeah. It was one of my biggest fears when I removed alcohol from my life, of like, how do I socialize and have fun and like have that confidence and all of those things.
Yeah.
And removing alcohol from my life has actually allowed me to connect more clearly and deeply with people, as well as, just genuinely be more confident and have more fun. I have exponentially more fun now than I ever did when I drank alcohol.
Yes. I agree. Yeah, I feel you. I really do. There's another thing you said about going within. So just last week, I did for the first time a BQH session, which is Beyond Quantum Healing.
Cool.
And it was like, I compared to like hypnotherapy. It was a 3.5 hour long session. And I've known, like, I'm not a stranger to going within. I very much know that the answers lie within us. They call it our gut instinct for a reason, because your gut is your intuition. It never steers you wrong, right? I mean, I always say, like, our gut, our intuition is the Holy Spirit. It's one and the same. I really think it's the same thing.
I do too.
So, I mean, I've always known that, but like, even though I've always known that, doing this healing session where it's literally like you're in that hypnotic state and she's asking the questions that I told her I wanted answered and I'm coming up with the answers. And even though I know this stuff, at the end, I still was like, really though? Like, that's all it was?
That's all.
Like, I knew all of this? Like, I just needed to get in tune again? Like,
isn't it so funny that oftentimes the answers are so simple too? And you're like, are you sure? Like, can we not make this a little bit more complicated?
Right. Like at the end, I wanted to be like, are you sure there's not someone we should call just to validate that everything I said is true? Like, and I've known this stuff. I've preached this all the time. It's not new information, but it's funny. I can imagine how somebody who is new to this probably is very much like, that is so out there and not true. There's no way. And me, somebody who's been practicing hypnotherapy for 6 years now, like, I know this, but I still question it. So it makes me empathize with people who are totally new to this way of thinking and believing, because I get it. I still have my days where I'm like, seriously though, like, really, I do know this? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
So funny. Yeah. No, same. They'll be like, I'm with you, like I said, on believing that intuition is the Holy Spirit moving through you. And
yes.
Oftentimes in meditation, I meditate for 15 minutes a day minimum.
Same.
It's like a non-negotiable for me.
Same. Yes.
And in meditation, one of my favorite things to do is like call on God, call on like this divine spirit to like make itself abundantly known. And I'll ask questions and I get almost immediate answers to the questions, but they're like 1 to 3 words maximum. And I'm like, can I have more? And it's like, no, because you don't need more.
Interesting. Like, we think it needs to be so complicated.
Yeah, because we're so used to like everybody and their mom being like, here's a banana. Like, let me explain every single piece of it to you, as opposed to just like literally you know what this is because you innately know how to interact with it.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
It's coming back to like ultimately just like deep, deep trust in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Perfect way of explaining it. Yeah. I like what you said though, calling on God. So I'm still in my phase. I do 15-minute meditations as well daily, but I'm still in my phase where I'm only doing guided still. Are you fully like you're meditating all on your own?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I want to get there.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's, I mean, not every meditation is like profound by any means, but I will say that I've been meditating without guided stuff for probably the past 3 years.
Cool.
And it was really weird at first because I was like, yay, nothing happens. But the more that you stick with it, and honestly, there's even different like books out there. I don't know if this is something that you're interested in or if this is something that listeners are interested in, but there's a book called The Psychic Pathway that is really powerful to check out if you're wanting to just like understand more about your like innate intuitive abilities.
Love.
And that's like, it's under the branch of like psychic, which a lot of people have like weird things around being psychic. Yeah. But there's like a lot of tools and resources I found, especially through books, that teach you different ways to reach deeper states of consciousness or to connect to different parts of the consciousness. One super simple one being just like choosing one affirmation statement that you want to choose. So for me, I oftentimes start with I am safe. Because once safety is established in the body, then you can explore the realms of all kinds of things. So like starting with an anchor affirmation and just repeating it over and over and over again in your head as you're meditating until you find yourself somewhere else.
I love that. That's good advice. Yeah, love it. So besides your in-person services, are you still doing your coaching program? Just like the online program?
Just the online membership.
The membership.
And that's my goal with that is I really am wanting to redefine the coaching industry in the way that it's only been accessible to people who are able to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for different services. I don't want to be able to have programs that are only accessible to those who are financially able. So going all in on this affordable service. The Belief Society is currently called the Mindset and Manifestation Inner Circle, but it's making a transitional rebrand into everything the Belief Society. And if you choose to be a part of the online stuff, you get access to everything, including the in-person stuff in New York. And for people in New York who are just wanting the in-person stuff, that'll be a completely different pay scale and tier and whatnot. But that's where you can get it all. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of resources for only $97 a month. There's no long-term commitment to it. So if anybody ever wants to join and just try it out and then decides at some point it's not for them, you can cancel. My goal, of course, is to make it so valuable you never want to. And oftentimes, I mean, the ladies inside hardly ever cancel because it truly is just such a transformative space.
Kat, that's amazing. $97. Does that just feel so aligned for you? Like, oh my gosh.
It does. It's terrifying because I come from the world of high ticket.
I know you do.
Having high ticket programs, but every single thing inside of me for the last 2 years has been like, this doesn't feel right. But every single business coach and whatnot out there being like, it's stupid for you to not do high ticket and just step into the realm of low ticket. And I'm like, all right, I don't fucking care because I create my reality and I'm going to do what I want anyways. So yeah, it feels incredible. It's so cool to see that for such a low monthly payment, people are able to create the lives of their dreams.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. Oh my gosh. So you have the Belief Society, you have the online membership, and if people want to listen to you, they can tune into the That's So Rich podcast. Is there anything else coming down the pipe in the near future, that professionally you want people to know about?
That's it, honestly.
That's a lot.
Belief Society, online and in person. Like you said, That's So Rich podcast used to be known as the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. And if you want to connect with me and actually get a response back, hit me up on Instagram, which is at Kat Cozadd.
Okay, and I'll put all the information, all the links in the show notes. So I like to end my collabs with some rapid fire questions. So let's dive in. All right, what is a book that you're currently reading?
I am currently doing A Course in Miracles, which I don't know if that is considered as a book that I'm reading, but it is a book that I am participating in.
A Course in Miracles. Wow.
It's a biggie.
That sounds amazing. So I broke my neck back in 2016, and so after that I was going around and doing some public speaking on the power of miracles, and because I could have died and should have been paralyzed and all the things, and so I just went around to different churches around here and baccalaureate and just any opportunity to just share my story I wanted to. And so that title, I don't know, that just seems very appealing to me.
It's pretty incredible. Any of the big names in the personal development world, if you dive deeper into their stuff, they will always talk about this.
That's so cool. It looks like a Bible just looking at it.
Totally. It's kind of kicking my ass, but it's great.
I love it. Okay. What's one thing you can't live without besides your phone?
Ooh, friends. I can't live
Beautiful.
without my friends, my community, the people that I love the most.
Yes, I completely agree. What is your current go-to podcast?
I don't have one.
Whoa, I'm shocked. Kat Cozadd, you heard it, guys. She doesn't currently listen to a podcast.
So here's the thing. I don't actively consume other people's content.
Interesting.
At all, because I want to remain inspired by my own. and want to tune into my inner world before I tune out to somebody else's perspective on the world.
Yeah, I like that. Wow. And then you're really tuning into your intuition that way versus tapping into somebody else's.
Totally,
energy.
because it's like if I go looking for the answers in somebody's podcast episode about whatever thing that I am pondering, I'm not getting my answer on it. I'm getting somebody else's answer on it.
Yeah, that's really good insight. Wow. I like that. Okay. Love the transparency. What's one song that you have to sing along to whenever it comes on?
Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, that takes me back to high school.
It's such a good song. It's like literally if you want to feel like you are capable of anything, that song's it.
Yes. Holy cow, I was not anticipating you saying that song. That's awesome. All right, last one. What is your favorite way to relax after a long day?
Probably cooking myself dinner and watching Netflix.
Okay, yeah. So you do watch Netflix. Okay, so she's not a robot.
No. Yeah, I was like, should I give them the manifestation coach answer or should I give them the real answer? Watching you on Netflix specifically, I've watched it so many times, which is hilarious because it's about murder.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love to, just be human. And like, that's, I think that I want to hit on this really, really quick because I know we're close to the end, but
you're fine.
One of the biggest things that irks me in personal development in the world of manifestation is this idea of needing to like almost be an unrealistic version of yourself.
Yeah.
And it stops so many people from actually manifesting what it is that they desire because they believe that they must show up and act and behave and be a certain way in order to receive what it is that they want.
Yeah.
And my thing for myself is like, we are humans here having the human experience. Like, go do some fucking human things. Go be human. Go live. Go watch TV. Go fuck up, fuck around, do whatever it is. Because in the experience of that, like, you're actually giving your soul what it needs to either learn the lessons or receive what it is that you desire. Right. Versus like trying to perfectly manicure yourself in some sort of way because you think that's what's going to get you what you want. That's not authentic to you. So I love to either get takeout or make dinner and plop my pretty ass down on this couch and watch Netflix.
I love that. Yep. That's real life. I agree. It's called balance and we all need it. So I get really I get up on my soapbox when my husband will say like, I'm just going to be lazy for the day. And I'm like, it's not called being lazy. Stop labeling it that. It's called balance. You worked a 40-hour work week. So it's okay to have a day where you do nothing. Like, totally. I don't understand that mindset sometimes where people think they have to label it as lazy. It's just that's not true. No. Kat, this was just simply amazing. It was a dream come true to have you on here. I'm so grateful you said yes. My listeners, I feel, will just eat this up. And I'm just so appreciative that I got the chance to talk to you face to face. And I will definitely be pushing out your program. I think this is a need. I think it's great that you're making it affordable. I think it's going to take off. I definitely am excited to see 5, 6, 7 months down the road where you're at with things. Like it's very exciting, a new journey for you. So that's awesome.
Thank you all around. This was lovely.
Yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in today. If anything that we talked about really resonates with you or hits home, go into the show notes, click on the links, explore her page a little more. She has an awesome website as well. If there's anything that just really hit home today, please DM me. I know I say this in every episode, but you guys, I really like connecting with my listeners. And I feel like if I can connect with you personally, then I can speak to you personally as well in my episodes. So if there's anything specific that we talked about that you were like, oh my gosh, this was what I needed to hear, DM me and let me know. I just love hearing how this resonates with listeners. So don't be shy. Reach out to me if you're comfortable doing so. Also, don't forget to rate and review the podcast. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to us. It means so much to me. If there were any aha moments or anything that really resonated with you on today's episode, then please take a minute and share it on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you. Also, if you could, Please rate and review the podcast as it is new, and that really helps to get the word out there more and reach even more listeners. I'll catch you on the next episode.